Hello Seekers and welcome back to my channel. I'm Alice Estrella Strange and today we are talking about Ancestral Magic. This is the second installment in my Ancestral Connection series. So if you haven't seen the first one yet, go ahead and check that out. The link will be up here wherever that is. And I want to start this video by talking about the healing that can come from working with your ancestors in a magical practice alone. Not ancestral healing, as we're talking about in later videos, as I've talked about in my previous video, but just the reclaiming of personal power that comes with working with your ancestors in a magical way. So I will share a little bit of my own story because I can't tell you about your personal story, your lineage, not over a video. There's just so many possibilities and so many different, familial makeup that can influence this sort of thing. You can definitely sit down with me one-on-one if you'd like. The link will be in the description for that. But let's start by talking about my story. For me and my family, I grew up in a very restrictive, conservative Christian household. And the idea of magic and witchcraft, etc., was not at all accepted, quite demonized, very much suppressed. For me, in my practice, working with my ancestors, let's say this suppression of magic, of psychic abilities, and those sort of things, it has spanned far back, very far back. And I have an ancestor that I work with most closely, and she also was a magically inclined individual that kept her practice hidden in secret. When I began working with my ancestors, she was the one who came through to me first, very strong. And what I've learned over time is that incorporating her into my magic, asking her to help me get that, bill paid, or help me to rather call in something that would make my life better, right? It's for my life now, here in the present, but allowing her to step in and assist with that is a way for her to get a chance, an opportunity that she didn't have when she was alive. So, just in doing the thing that is different, doing the thing that's hard, that's scary, of being a magical individual and not giving a flying frick about what anyone says about that, has been incredibly healing for myself, obviously, but definitely for my ancestor as well. Before I ever did any ancestral healing, just the fact that I was willing to break the family tradition, break those cycles of suppression and secrecy. Through that alone, it's been really healing for my ancestor to kind of be a little part of the magic, get a little chance to do some modern magic, which is incredibly fun, incredibly fulfilling, really, to see it and feel it really in her, the excitement and the desire to help me with those things. So this looks like a magical practice. It also looks like my psychic abilities and intuitive development, learning to trust those things, all of that. So my hope is that what you can take from this is maybe if your family's not one that is magically inclined, is even accepting, welcoming of a magical practice in general, that doesn't mean your ancestors don't want to help you with it. That doesn't mean your ancestors don't want to see you live a fulfilling and happy life. Our ancestors, everyone, dies with certain regrets and certain what ifs. I wish I could have things floating around in their mind. And I find that asking our ancestors, allowing them to help us create a better life than they had, often is something that they very much want to do. So this will look different for everyone. This will be very unique and individual for everyone, but maybe take a page from my book and think about trying. Even if you're hesitant, there's a reason you feel called to it. If you're watching this video and you feel called to ancestral magic, you're called to it for a reason. So, with that, let's talk about some of the correspondences that I love to use for ancestral work in my own practice. So, first of all, one of them that I talked about in my first video in this series is apples. Apples, I do believe I talked about in that video. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Apples, in the tradition I started my practice with, they're considered the food of the dead. They came from the island of Avalon, where the fair folk and the dead both resided. So, for me, apples are the food of the dead. It is always something I like to incorporate into my rituals, either on their altar, but more often myself consuming them. Apple tea, apple cinnamon tea is always my go-to for ancestor ritual preparation. Now, that brings us to cinnamon. Cinnamon is a really good correspondence to use in ancestral magic because think about the smell of cinnamon. When you smell like really strong cinnamon, it like shocks you awake. You get this surge of energy. I don't know how to describe that in a better way, but the smell of cinnamon is invigorating. Cinnamon is an invigorator, and in my practice, I associate that with life force energy, even blood at times. So to be working with your ancestors, bringing in correspondences that are energizing, vitalizing, they are correspondences that bring energy to the system, to the body. This is a really good correspondence to use for your ancestors because they are no longer alive and they could definitely use a little bit of boost of life force energy. So, beyond apples and cinnamon, well, let's talk about blood first. Let's talk about blood. I know this is probably controversial and weird for a lot of people, and I don't care. So let's just be real. Working with ancestors, working with the dead in general, blood is a very symbolic thing, just in general. Blood is our life force. It pumps through our veins, and without blood, we would not be here. It's the thing that keeps our bodies going, right? And even if you're not someone who's into the blood magic thing, you don't want to be messing with all that, that's totally fine. There are herbs and other correspondences that are good replacements for blood in magic. One of those being red wine. That's a very common one you hear. Another one I use in my practice is purple coneflower. Purple coneflower is a vitalizer, and it also is really good, like if we're talking medicinal properties, it is really good for just whole system healing. It's like a heal all type herb, especially in indigenous cultures, I believe, question mark, don't quote me on that. So using things like purple coneflower and red wine to symbolize blood, to represent the life force that keeps us alive, is a way to connect with your ancestors. These are correspondences that can really help you to give them a boost, give them a little bit of life force energy so that they can manifest. Well, maybe not physically. What I mean is they can be in your space. They can exist. They have energy to do what you're asking of them, to exist on the physical plane. Other than that, let's talk about my favorite correspondence when it comes to working with ancestors, and that is mugwort. If you've been around this channel for a while, you've probably heard me talk about mugwort for so long, and I'm not going to stop. Mugwort is incredibly helpful for so many things. It's great for intuition enhancement. It's a good meditation aid. It's really good for sleep and dream work. So something else about mugwort is that some people say mugwort holds the wisdom of all of the collective ancestors that have ever existed, right? We're not talking like your lineage, we're talking about every ancestor ever. So when connecting with your ancestors, working with mugwort can help you to really tap into their wisdom. And really this is done by heightening your intuition, quieting your logical mind a little bit, and just allowing it to flow in. Ways you can work with mugwort. Mugwort is great in a tea, in a salve, a balm, like if you want to rub it on your skin topically. I've used mugwort as a salve for, it's definitely the longest method I've used with mugwort. Um, it's always really nice to rub it like on the bottoms of your feet, on your wrists, where there's a lot of blood flow. All right, on the back of your neck is a big one for me. You can also rub it like on your temples or your third eye, wherever you really want to bring some intuitive energy in. I encourage you to play around, experiment, see what works for you. Another way to work with mugwort is drinking it as a tea. Drinking mugwort in a tea format is pretty accessible for most people. You can buy just loose leaf herb if you have a tea strainer, or those, those empty tea bags you can buy. You can buy pre-bagged mugwort tea. That's something that's out there. And I think working with mugwort tea, drinking that before a ritual, or drinking that before you go into a meditation, drinking it before bed and setting the intention over your tea that you want to connect with your ancestors while you sleep. You're open to any dreams, any visuals, any messages that they have for you. Goodness, that they have for you. Now, another way to work with mugwort, which is my current favorite, is smoking mugwort. Now, before I go any further, I want to give some disclaimers. Some people are allergic to mugwort, and I'm not an herbalist, I'm not a doctor, but before you even begin working with mugwort, definitely Google like mugwort allergy, something along those lines. There are certain plants and herbs that are the same, they cause the same allergies. If you're allergic to celery, I know is one, then you're probably likely going to be allergic to mugwort. So go Google that shit and look up what the other herbs and plants are. Do your own research for sure. Another way you can allergy test that I've heard of, again, I'm not an expert in this, so don't quote me on it, definitely do your own research, is a skin test. You can apply some of the fresh, you can crush up the leaves of mugwort and rub it on like your inner arm, that really sensitive skin. And if you wait a while, and if you start to have itchiness, some kind of reaction, then don't put it in your body. Absolutely not. You can also do this with an essential oil that's like actually mugwort and not something synthetic. There are other ways to work with this, but please just do your research and be very safe before anything working with herbs that you're putting in your body, okay? And one final disclaimer, smoking mugwort is not something you want to do on a regular basis. Mugwort has some toxins in it, neurotoxins, I believe. The people I've spoken to, the experts that I've spoken to, recommend no more than twice a week. So do be careful. I believe it can cause seizures to those who have epilepsy. Just be very careful. All right. Now with those disclaimers out of the way, let's talk about smoking mugwort. So for me, the process of burning and inhaling the smoke of an herb, this is very much an alchemical process, right? Maybe we're getting really woo here for a second, but with the fire, you are transforming the herb in some way. You are causing a transformation and turning it into ash. Now, as you inhale the smoke, the product of this transformation, the air, connecting to the air element, which is good for thought, inspiration, intuition, those sort of things. Sometimes intuition, but definitely your thoughts. This is a great way to connect with an herb on a very airy air element, very spiritual level. With the transformation piece, with the air element and the fire element, this is a really great way to call on properties of an herb in a more spiritual, air element, fire element, spirit element focused way, in my personal experience. Now, this is not for everyone, and that is okay. I'm not pressuring you to do this, absolutely not. I'm just sharing my experience here on the internet like another random internet person. So, something else you can do if you're not into the smoking part, you can get mugwort incense, you can get those charcoal discs and drop some of the dried herb onto a charcoal disc to let that smoke come into your room, and with some really great ventilation, you can get a little bit of that smell into your nose, and that starts the process as well. I find that working with mugwort as a way to connect with my ancestors, it's just a really great way to quiet the logical mind, to get the self doubt to stop chattering away, to get your ego and your fears and your worries, your busyness of like your busy modern life out of your mind, setting it to the side, and really, really focus on that intuitive wisdom that is coming through. I really like to smoke mugwort, work with mugwort in general when connecting with my ancestors prior to ritual. If I really want to give them, this is an offering I like to give them, just allowing them to be with me in my sleep. That is one way I will work with my ancestors through the use of mugwort. Inviting them into my sleep, inviting them to be with me, to meet with me, send me messages, whatever it looks like. And I will do that with setting an intention around using mugwort in whatever way I'm doing that. So even if you don't want to be smoking mugwort, you can definitely do a salve, a balm, or an incense, a tea before ritual or before sleep. Now, last correspondence I want to bring up here is the colors red and black. For me, this is a go-to when working with my ancestors or the dead in general. I really love to use black as a representative of death, the afterlife, the beyond, the unknown, right? As well as red, which is the color of blood, which is physical energy, vitality. Combining those two, I have found to be really, really powerful in helping my ancestors to show up and have a little more life in them. It's just a really great color palette when working with the dead in general. All right, now I want to talk about 3 different magical practices you can do to connect with your ancestors. The first is a journeying ritual adapted from the book Hedge Druidry by Joanna van der Hoven. It's the one that really started me on my journey, so this has always been a go-to practice I recommend to people when they're just starting ancestor work. So this ritual is going to look like a meditation. If you're someone who journeys, then it's a journey. But if you're not, then this can just be a simple meditation. Now, what it's going to look like is really connecting to the breath. And let's talk about why that is. So, with our ancestors, we connect to them through the breath. We breathe the same air that our ancestors breathed. We breathe just in the same way that they breathed. There's something so primal, so instinctual about the breath, and using it as a tool, as a way to work your magic is actually a really powerful practice. And we can connect to our ancestors through the breath. In this ritual, you're going to want to get nice and comfy, cozy, really relaxed, really relaxed. You're going to set some music for yourself. I really love a good drumming track, especially the live ones, not necessarily the created in a music making program, but like an actual drum track. Those really help me get there. But do whatever music really vibes with you, helps you relax, can help you get into a little bit of a light trance or a meditative state, and give yourself plenty of time to let that restless body phase dissipate and fade out. Let your body really relax into this. If you want to work some mugwort in, a tea beforehand, you can do that too. Then when you are all nice and relaxed, you're going to start breathing very intentionally, noticing the breath, making it nice and long exhales, right? Then you're going to visualize yourself, whether you're a journeyer and you want to do your descent to the lower world or whatever that looks like for you in your practice, you can do that. If this is just a meditation for you, then I would begin by visualizing yourself in front of a cave opening. And really take time to study. You want to take your time with this. Notice the rocks, notice the ground. If you're someone who gets like feelings, if the touch sense is good for you, then really feel your feet taking these very slow, intentional steps. You can focus on the smell, the sound, whatever it is that brings you in. Let this place really come to life, all right? Then you are going to walk yourself into this cave. And just keep walking, taking nice, slow breaths, being very intentional, noticing all the little things around you, the sounds, the smells, the colors. Then, when you get to the end of this cave passage, there is a pool of water. You will then see yourself looking down into the pool of water and breathing. Notice yourself, study your reflection for a moment. Then you are going to invite one side of your lineage in, either your mother or your father. Choose one, whichever feels right. Then what you want to do is you're going to take nice deep breaths after you've invited them in and visualize your parent or your grandparent, whoever's passed on each side, standing just behind you. And as you breathe, you're going to notice that you're breathing in unison. As you breathe, your ancestors breathe. Then, once you've breathed with this ancestor for a while, you're going to notice another one appear behind them. And essentially, you're going to see this turn into one person into thousands of people, right? And as you breathe, you're just noticing that all of your ancestors are breathing with you. It is connection through the breath, right? From there, it's really up to you what you want to do with this. This is just simply a way to invite your ancestors in, to connect with them a little deeper, to start strengthening that bond. But if you also want to fit in some kind of ask, some kind of like, hey, I'd love to connect with you in my day-to-day. I'd love to start working with you in my practice. Find something in the moment that feels right. I feel like for me, usually when I get to this point in the meditation, I know what I need to say. I know what's needed. So trust yourself in the process. And also, if nothing happens, if it doesn't come in really strong for you, that is okay. That is absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of, sometimes we aren't the strongest at meditation skills. Sometimes we're in our heads a little bit. Sometimes our ancestors don't want to come in just yet. Or sometimes we aren't ready for our ancestors to come in. Maybe we have subconscious blocks around connecting. That's okay. If you visualize yourself there and nobody shows up, then just note that. Just note that and start asking yourself why. Maybe pull some tarot cards, do some pendulum work, whatever it is that helps you to get a little bit of clarity. You can start digging into that and finding some clarity for yourself around why it didn't go so well. And be open to the honest truth. Be open to the honest truth, because sometimes we don't want to know the truth of that stuff, and that's okay. But being open to it, being ready for it, is a really great way to start building a better magical practice in general. Learning to take that no, take that hard truth in stride is a great way to better yourself and yourself in your practice. So, all good stuff here. Last thing I'll say about this meditation slash journey, is when you've connected, you have all of these ancestors behind you, backing you, you're breathing in unison. It is really powerful to, rather than looking in this reflection, turn around and face your ancestors. Really notice their features. Some of them will look like you, some of them will not look like you. Some of them will just have like shadowy features that won't really be recognizable. That's normal. Just really take time to take it in and to appreciate, like really appreciate them showing up, because that is a big part of an ancestral practice in general, is having gratitude and really honoring when they show up for you. So if this is your first ritual with them and you do this and they show up, then absolutely celebrate that. Thank them for that. Okay. Now, the second ritual I'm going to introduce to you today is a ritual to invite ancestors into your space. And this is a really good ritual to like put in combination with creating an ancestor altar. If you've created a space, if you've like cleaned off a space even and haven't put stuff together yet, this is a really great way to start that practice. Now, if you want to take time to put it together, if you have all of your stuff planned out and just haven't done it yet, then I encourage you to do that first. But if having the stuff is what's keeping you held up, then don't worry about it. Just do this ritual. So, goodness, I have a few notes down here. What you will need for this ritual, you will need a glass of some kind. Um, this should be like nice glassware. We don't want to use a paper cup, right? Something that is relatively sturdy. It doesn't have to be fine china, but do know that this is like an offering for your ancestors. So it's probably a good idea to put a little bit of care into it. Of course, do what you can, what is available to you, but take some care. They're worth it. So you'll need a glass, you will need some water. You will need 2 candles. Of course, red and black are great for this, but white also works. Really, whatever you have is all right. But, again, they're worth the effort. So if you have it, go ahead and get yourself some fancy stuff or use your fancy stuff. Along with this, you will need some kind of food offering. This can be as simple as a piece of bread with some butter on it. It can be a piece of bread with honey on it. It can be a bagel. Like, I'm truly saying, whatever it is you have in your kitchen right now, find something that your ancestors would appreciate. If you have cookies, if you have cake, if you have something very fancy, even if you want to take a portion of your dinner, all right, this is a really good hack for those of us who don't want to be putting a lot of effort into preparation or aren't able to go out and buy a whole bunch of fancy stuff. Really just taking a serving of your dinner and offering it is a great way to do this. So you'll want a little bit of food on some kind of plate. Again, going with something nice, preferable. So once you have your 2 candles, your cup and your water, and your food offering, then it's time to start getting ready to do the ritual. For this ritual, as far as timing, I really recommend doing this on a dark moon. That's usually what I go to in my practice, dark moon for the dead. Or it can be the full moon. It could also be at sunset if you're not able to sync with the moon cycles and that's like really hard for your schedule. Going at sunset, going at midnight, at 3 a.m. Find a time that feels significant in your practice. These are just recommendations for my own practice. You will find what works for you. Just experiment, play around, find out. Trust your gut on that, on all of it. For this ritual, you're also going to want to wear something. This is my recommendation. I recommend you wear something nice, something fancy, maybe something you would wear to a funeral, maybe something that would impress your ancestors. I'm saying get a little fancy. Wear a nice dress if you wear dresses, or wear a button-up shirt if you're not someone who wears dresses. Think like, what would I wear to a funeral? And then go from there. Now, once you have chosen your timing and your clothing, you're going to want to do some purification for yourself at the beginning. I think this is really important for all rituals, especially important ones. But, this could look like showering, doing a purification shower. It could even be really washing up your hands and your arms, like all up, very nice and clean, incorporating some kind of special soap with like an herbal correspondence in there, something like lemon, something like rosemary, something along those lines. Find what works for you, but whatever purification process you go through, do that before you do this ritual. Then you are going to want to, of course, cleanse your space. It's very important to cleanse your space before inviting the dead into it, right? And for this ritual, I encourage you to do it either near the altar space that you have or that you're going to have, wherever it's going to be set up, or just in your magical workspace. And I also encourage you to do this in the dark. Do it by candlelight. This is just setting the vibes, right? And I know that sounds like so, oh, the vibes, but really, like, the vibes in my practice mean a lot. If I'm in a ritual space that does not feel, if it feels very like fun and light and playful, maybe that's music or smell or lighting, that doesn't really vibe well with like a banishing ritual or with a death ritual, right? Like, those are not the same vibes. And for me, really matching the mood of the atmosphere to the mood of the magic, really, it makes a big difference. So do this by candlelight if you can. And you are going to sit yourself in this area. You'll have 1 candle on your left, 1 candle on your right. Everything else will be put in place at a later time. Then, of course, put up your protections. If you're someone who does shielding, do that. If you are a circle caster, do that. And if you're not familiar with any kind of protections of this sort, I really, really encourage you to check out some videos online about circle casting. There are some really great videos on YouTube about circle casting and how to best do that. But really, it is important when inviting the dead into your space that you take the necessary precautions, right? So I encourage you to do some sort of strong protections at this point. And if you're someone like me who works with Hecate or another goddess associated with death, the god, deity associated with death, then this would be a good time to invite them in after you've done your protections. If not, then that's fine. You can call in your spirit guides, you can call in other people if you want, but for me, I really like to call in Hecate just because she is that mediator between the living and the dead. Now, if you're going to do this meditation / journeying ritual I've recommended, this would be the time to do it. If you want to incorporate them into the same thing, this would be the time after you've called in your help and you've put up your protections and everything else. Then, finally, it is time to light the candle on your left. As you light this candle, you are going to say something along the lines of, I light this flame as a symbol of life. I call to my ancestors, the ones who came before me. I welcome you to join me in this space now. Once you've done that, and again, take your time with this. This is meant to be very slow and intentional. So take a little bit of time. Really notice any shifts you feel. Notice if you feel something in your body, a shift, an emotional shift, if you feel some kind of temperature change in the room. That's something I experience a lot with these sort of rituals. Then once you've taken your time and just kind of let that settle, right? You've invited them in, give them a second to settle. Then you're going to pour the water you have into your cup. As you're pouring the water, say something along the lines of, I pour you this water so that you may drink. Take a minute, and then place the food you have next to the glass on your surface, your workspace. And you will say something along the lines of, I give you this food so that you may eat. From here, I want you to take a moment again to be really still. Close your eyes, really notice what you're feeling, what you're sensing. Check in with your body. It's interesting how the ancestors do tend to show up in our bodies very much. I think it makes sense because we are their living, the little bits of their DNA and their life that is still living today. And so it makes sense that they come through in the body, but pay extra attention to what you're sensing and feeling in your body. This may be how the messages come through, how the shifts are felt. So then after you've sat for a while, start breathing very intentionally. And you will say, I breathe so that you may breathe. Then continue to sit. Continue to just breathe. Notice what sensations, what feelings, what shifts you're noticing. And again, if you're not noticing or feeling anything, that's okay too. It may not come through, but if it does come through, it's worth taking note, all right? So at this point, what you'll want to do is just sit and talk with them. Remember that our ancestors are still people. They are people just like us. So sit and have a conversation. This is your chance to be very real, very heartfelt, very vulnerable, very authentic. It's your time to tell them why you're even wanting to connect with them. Why do you want to connect in the first place? What are you looking for? Are you looking for a deeper connection to your roots, a deeper purpose and meaning to your life? Are you looking for support and guidance? Are you looking for support in your magical practice? Just let your heart spill. Talk to them as if they are in the room with you. Also, if you've considered spiritual boundaries, okay, I guess we'll talk about that for a second. Spiritual boundaries with the dead. For me, in my practice, spiritual boundaries with the dead, as soon as I invite somebody into my space, I always give them some rules to follow because we've got a lot of spirits here. And it gets a little busy, it gets a little crowded, and if everybody's following the rules, it makes everything flow a lot easier. So I do like to give my ancestors a space, right? Like this altar space is yours, wherever this altar is, right? This is where you can exist. You can just chill out when you want. I also like to kind of set some boundaries on off-limit zones in the home. For me, no spirits in the bathroom, no spirits in the bedroom. It just feels weird, especially with my ancestors. Um, and also, if you're someone who doesn't want to see your ancestors, you don't want to audibly hear your ancestors, and that's something that you're concerned about, best to get it done right out the gate. Best to just put it out there. And again, this is always something you can set later on. These boundaries will be something that you will want to continuously revisit and have like house meetings over, essentially. But if you don't have anything at the beginning of this ritual, you've reflected, you've thought about it, and there's nothing that you really want to set right off the bat, that's okay. That's okay. But also, if you have something in your mind already, it's best to just get it done in the moment. Or it can be best to get it done in the moment. Of course, it's different for everyone. And again, this portion of the ritual, this talking part, is really the important part. This is the most important part, to really build that connection and start your connection with some real open communication, some honesty, some realness. So take your time with it. Take time to listen to responses, any senses that come online that give you a bit of a sense. Also, it would be a good time to incorporate some divination. You want to pull some cards and ask your ancestors, if they have messages for you, or does this feel good to you? Are you good with this? Those are good things to incorporate at this point, I suppose. I think it's important to remember during this ritual that we should be giving before we receive. So I encourage you not to ask for anything. Don't ask for things from them in your very first ritual that you are inviting them into your space. Give first, take later. Great rule of thumb with the dead. Then once you've sat for a while, chatted with your ancestors, done all that stuff, it is time to light the candle on your right. When you light this candle, you will say, I invite my ancestors into my home. May our connection bring joy and fulfillment to us both. And then your ritual is essentially complete. You will take these still burning candles and leave them on the altar, or place them on the altar, or the space that will become the altar, essentially just giving them a home. These candles are going to act as the anchors for your ancestors. This is where they're going to anchor into our world. So be very intentional with where you place them and allow them to burn down fully. If that's you don't want to be sitting there forever, to be making sure your candles don't burn anything, fire safety is important, then you can use tea lights, you can use really small candles, really quick burning spell candles, whatever. Just find what works. And from that point, you're going to wrap up your ritual. Take down your protections, thank your assistants, thank your ancestors, and just like whatever ritual process you usually go through. And of course, leave the water and the food there on that altar space, that dedicated space for them. This is their offering. These are their offerings. Allow them to sit for about 24 hours. It doesn't have to be a full 24. I encourage a full 24. And don't let them sit too long. Definitely don't let the food spoil. Don't let the water go stale. It's really important to, it's just respectful. It's very respectful to just take care of the offerings. Of course, if you have water, it's great to pour it out outside. If you have food that you've offered and it's safe to go out into nature, it's not going to hurt any of the wildlife, you can definitely put it outside or dispose of it in another offerings format. This has already turned into a very long video, so actually I'm going to leave the third magical practice, which is making a ancestor connection candle, for my next video. So if you want to check out that video, catch it when it goes live, hit that subscribe button, all the stuff to make sure you get that notification. And of course, let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this, any questions about ancestral work, because I do pay attention to the comments and I do want to hear your questions, either answering them in the comments or answering them in a next video. So let me know what your thoughts and feelings are. Let me know what your questions are. Let me know if you have an ancestral practice and what it looks like for you. If you're someone who already works with your ancestors, I would love to hear about it. And if you would like some more deeper dives into ancestral magic, you can sign up for my email newsletter, Letters from the In-Between, where I will have an email coming out soon that goes right along with this video. Also, whatever theme the video is on this week, you will receive an email to go even deeper into that topic. If that sounds good to you, you can find the link in the description to sign up. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I will see you in the next one. And until then, remember, stay curious, friends.